In a time of endless media content, political correctness and fake news, a city in chaos cried out for heroes. Two men were chosen, a mighty force forged in the heat of hilarity. The crack cried out for heroes. Two men were chosen, a mighty force forged in the heat of hilarity. The crack, the banter, the lack of negative waves. Their podcast would change the world.
And instead they got two absolute idiots, one whose crippling narcissism will inevitably lead to someone choking him to death, the other his obsession with Stone Cold Steve Austin ended in multiple restraining orders and a broken neck, not his own. No, this isn't the number one podcast in the country, yet. It's Jack and Sean on You Ain't Heard Nothing Yet.
And hello, how's the form, what is the crack, and how are you getting on? Yes, you are listening to Jack and Sean on You Ain't Heard Nothing Yet.
Nothing.
What's the crack, Sean?
Not a lot. Episode 3. We're in triple digits.
It is indeed.
We're not
yeah.
triple digits. We're on the third episode just.
We are.
We're a long way off triple digits.
Triple digits in Roman numerals.
Yeah, which is still just 3 though, so that's not really a massive.
Yeah, no,
improvement.
it's not.
It's just 3. We have a 4th episode. We just lost it. We don't know where it is.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
So it's away.
We'll track it down somewhere.
We will find it. We will find it, and we will get it out. What have you? What's the crack? Have you been watching or seeing anything wild or wonderful, John?
I've seen something very, very wild and very wonderful. I watched.
Wait there. Hold on. Who did you see run through naked in Belfast?
That's next week.
Oh, okay.
I'm not actually. I think there's a court order currently. I'm not.
Oh, right. Okay.
But no, I watched a Korean film that is due out in Europe more generally, I think in the new year, like January, February time. Mm-hmm. It won the Palme d'Or Cannes last year. It's called Parasite. Mm-hmm. And
which is the descriptive word I use for most people that annoys me. And Parasite.
It's actually a biopic about Jack Donnelly.
I've sucked the life out of most people.
Out of everything. But no, it's a film it's about themes of like ingrained class structures in Korea, and well, the larger sort of middle class versus working class versus the lower working class, and how they like feed off each other and work for each other, and how they tie in with each other, and how they kind of view each other. I'm going to be unsuitably vague because essentially the plot of the film is you have this very poor family who ingratiate themselves as this very rich family. They all get jobs with them under false pretenses. You know, one of them's a tutor, the sister's a music tutor. Sort
of sneak in like.
Yeah, the dad's a driver, the mom's like the housekeeper, and then something happens about halfway through the film that changes the dynamic completely.
Right.
And then I'll not spoil it because it's very fantastic and it goes from there. Maybe we'll talk about it more. Cause I know I'm being very brief, but I kind of really want. I know you haven't seen it yet. I would think if you watch it before next time, we can discuss it a bit further. But I would highly recommend seek it out. Parasite by Bong Joon-ho is the director. You can't get it on Netflix or anything at the minute.
Isn't it on Netflix?
No. Don't think so.
Where did you watch it?
On some totally legitimate platform, you know, like a Cinema in America. Maybe I'm friends with the director, and he's sort of me.
Hey, work's been very good in giving you those flights.
I know, like, you know, it's great. The unnamed corporation we work for that is not in any way associated with this podcast.
Not even a wee bit.
Not even a wee bit.
No way, shape, or form.
And yeah, it's great of them to fly me out to watch art house Korean films, isn't it? I think that really ties into my job role.
You and that director, how you just get on very, very well.
Oh yeah, me and him are just like best buddies.
Yeah,
I think actually
kissing cousins.
I think actually I mentioned he did Snowpiercer, which was a film I previously mentioned on here. I think maybe Jack added that out. Who knows?
Not to my recollection, but we'll go with it.
But yeah, Parasite. Seek it out. We'll discuss it more maybe next time or in the new year when it maybe is in cinemas, because I imagine the QFT will have it. Yeah, but with the first Korean film to win the Palme d'Or, the top prize at Cannes. Okay. The top film festival. So they must be doing something right. But yeah, Parasite.
Fair play to Parasite. You know who is a complete parasite in my head?
A lot of people, I'd imagine.
A lot of people.
Who's at the top of the list?
Do you know who's sort of who's at the top of the list and doing a serious good job at the moment? Emma Thompson, aka Hermione Granger.
Emma Thompson. Why does that sound right? Is her name Thompson?
Wait, is her name Thompson?
Watson.
Whoa.
Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson is a queen, and I apologise for that awful statement.
She's the one in Mamma Mia, Emma Thompson.
Here we go again. Yeah. Here we go again with
Emma Watson.
Just being a reptile. Just a reptile. Just trying to, like, I don't know, like, keep her name in the news or some bullshit. I don't know, like, she's doing really well in terms of she works for a lot of charities and NGOs and stuff now after Harry Potter. And it's not because I'm not a fan of Harry Potter, right?
He's not a fan of Harry Potter. I thought this was just
I swear to God I'm not a fan of Harry Potter. She was a pin-up girl in my room.
I thought you didn't like Harry Potter.
I had a poster of her when I was younger. Like, I'm not gonna, I remember actually we were doing a thing in that undisclosed organisation that we work for.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they asked me to like host this warm up sort of thing one time when we started.
And the only way you could get warmed up was with your poster of MLS.
One of the questions we asked everybody at the start was, you know, who did you fancy when you were younger?
Uh-huh.
And everybody was saying different
Stone Cold
ones.
Steve Austin.
Well, I mean, like we're not all you, Sean. You know what I mean? But I can see the allure.
Shawn Michaels.
No.
He is a sexy boy.
Sexy. But a lot of people say different ones. I was thinking to myself, who in my head was Buffy the Vampire, of course.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Vampire Slayer.
Vampire Slayer. Sorry, and she was definitely up there when I was younger. Like, as been somebody who was pretty hot. Hermione Granger was there, but sorry for this digression, folks. But there was a fella who was into it as well. Lovely, lovely fella.
You're just gonna out some guy here for his like.
No, he's already out. He's already out.
I don't mean like that.
No, but he said something that was fucking brilliant. He goes, my favourite pin-up when I was younger, who I had on my wall, was Britney Spears. And then there was just like, everybody was like, oh, okay. And he goes, though, he turns around and just goes, but I think I was a wee bit confused. And it's brilliant. He's a boyfriend, all like he's gay.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it was a funny line. If he's listening to this, I'm sorry for saying that one, but I just thought it was one of the funniest things that was ever said. Everybody was a nice.
This is the last episode, folks, because Jack's going to run us through court now. But yeah.
But the reason why I'm not a fan of
Sorry,
Emma,
Britney Spears digression. Do you ever see the video? What's Britney Spears' big song?
Toxic, come slipping a
No.
dance of a poison.
No. Stop. How do I turn this mic?
Baby.
No,
Like,
the
you
other
can
one.
See me now, I'm making like weird sexual gestures towards Sean here.
There's another one. Right, I don't know what the song is, but
Another one.
that's not a Britney Spears
No,
song.
it's
That's
not.
and the video, she's in like space, on like space and stuff, on a planet and stuff.
Right.
But it's like a rip-off of Titanic for some reason. Well, except it's in,
okay.
well, no, I don't mean it's a rip-off of Titanic. I mean, for some reason, at the start of it, it's like about, you know, this Titanic starts and they're talking about that like jewel that got lost.
Oh yes,
The
the jewel
necklace.
of the ocean. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and that's
The
at the
one
start.
that sexy Kate Winslet painted for Leonardo for, or Leonardo painted her for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that. Yeah, it's totally why I painted it. And this video is just really weird. It's like a 4-minute Britney Spears video, but like the first and the last like 15-30 seconds
She's riding a rocket or something.
are about
Whoa, Jack.
or like the start and end of Titanic, where it's like, oh no, I've lost my necklace. Oh, but I found my necklace. It was really weird. But anyway, sorry. Right, so Britney Spears, posters, Emma Watson. Right, Emma Watson is a
Emma
reptile.
Watson, she came out a few weeks ago when she said that somebody asked her in an interview about relationships or whatever, and she said she's self-partnered.
Uh-huh.
She's single.
Right.
Why do we need to put another label on self-partnered?
Uh-huh.
I selectively choose to be single. Yeah, I selectively choose to be single.
Do you
as well.
selectively choose?
I
to be single?
selectively
I don't
choose.
think, you don't think
to be
selectively
single.
choose to be single.
So-
Other people selectively choose for him to remain single.
Well, sorry to tell you, right, Sean, but it's the way it is. It's the way it is.
is.
But why do you have to put another? We already have single,
We do have single.
and there's a lot of people who don't selectively want to be single, don't want to be like are pursuing like girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, a partner for life. Do you know what I mean? But why do we have to have another label on another? It already has a label. It's
does.
not. It's not like offensive to my knowledge to any specific gender. It's not.
Single.
Do you know what I mean? Like what's it all about?
I don't know. Maybe if it's like your guy in Split, you know, he can't really be single because there's other
Emma
people.
Thompson has a debilitating medical disorder where she morphs into different people.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
you said it.
She-
I didn't even like Split.
I didn't mind it
I
actually.
didn't like Split.
Yeah. I can just imagine her like sometimes, you know, she gets up in front of this massive conference and she's chatting to people and such things, and then it's just she turns into Expelliarmus.
And then turns into like the monster out of Split.
I don't know, like, but I was like, why do we need to have another name for?
What do
it?
you think self-partner means? Does self-partner different from single?
She's
Or is
like,
it?
no, but her whole thing is like she selectively chooses to.
Oh,
be,
so that's what makes it self-partnered over single?
Yeah.
Because she chooses to be.
you're selectively single. Just,
Selectively,
I'm
yeah.
single. Like, you know what I mean?
But then, well, so you wouldn't be self-partnered?
No, I'm just single. No, in her eyes, I would be self-partnered.
Well,
Do you know?
okay.
Do you know what I mean?
And you're not a fan
No,
of-
it's not okay, Sean.
It's not okay. Sorry, it's not okay. Sorry.
It's not okay.
It's not okay. He has locked this door, folks. I have to agree with him.
But I'm just not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
It is a bit weird. What was the context of this announcement? Was she at an event? Did anyone ask?
No, she was just asked in an interview very recently, and it was in my head. It was in my head for the last actually episode, and then we just got chatting about something else. Completely forgot about it.
Are you more annoyed because... Hold on. Woo. Are
What?
you more annoyed because you fancy Emma Watson and,
I do, which
she's now said that she's not interested and you're taking this as a person? Is the first one.
I love you, Emma. I love you so much.
And is the first
Why
one.
won't you help me?
Because she's self-partner. She's taken by herself.
She's taken by herself. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, it's mad. Like, I'm sure there's loads of people listening. I'm sure most people in the world give themselves a bit of self-loving at times. You know, self-loving, a bit of self-loving.
That's it. Jack maybe.
Five-knuckle shuffle.
Jack's maybe a bit self-partnered after a night out when he goes home alone.
Well, it's just a standard thing.
A bit of self-partnering.
That's if I get home safely, Sean, which a lot of the times doesn't really happen.
So what if you don't get home safely? Do you just self-partner in the street?
No, because I can't be doing any more of these court-ordered things.
No. Not until the first year, so right away anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
What else? What else has annoyed you or perturbed you?
No one's really annoyed me. Climate change is a big thing. Not that climate change.
No one's really annoyed me. Climate change doesn't annoy me. Emma Watson said she's self-partnered though. Well, you're on.
Well, Your Honour. I'm not a fan. No, the crack that's going on in Venice and the floods. Did you see that?
Yeah.
You were in Venice.
I was in Venice.
Was it last year, this year?
Was this year's March 19th?
Sean
March
works
19th.
for MI5. What?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's absolute madness. It's absolute madness. You know, switch the wellies for flip flops or what?
Switch the wellies for scuba gear. Well, look at him.
Did you see there was a guy? I think it was a man, and he was just swimming through. Like, you know, it might have only been like a meter of water, which you can still swim in. Do you know what I mean? But he was swimming through that. Did you see that video?
No, that's mad.
Imagine all the I don't know. There's gonna be shops and all that. Like, it's just it is crazy stuff. Like, you know?
Venice as a whole is getting shafted. Because remember, there was it April? There was a cruise ship crashed into the side of one of the islands.
That's right.
And they're trying to ban cruise ships going through that area because I think because you know Venice
That's
is
coral reef, no?
well, Venice is like on not stilts, but it's built on like wood basically. You know, like
Yeah, wood and water. That's well done, lads.
and
Smart thinking there.
obviously these cruise ships send out like waves, big waves in the water that like damage those foundations. Sure, they say Venice is going to be gone completely before the end of the century, I think.
Right. So says you get your tickets.
Yeah, see it while you can. You know, one night only, but
I wonder, can it be like that Simpsons episode where they just pick the town up and move it like, the road a wee bit, you know?
yeah,
The wreck and fuck shit up, and it's like, woo.
sorted. That's fine.
But just if anybody is going to Venice and needs any clothing options or any fashion tips, I know a fella down the road, lives very close to me, sell you a great pair of steel-toe cap Dunlops. Well,
Right.
no bother, sort the thing out.
Okay,
know?
what about scuba gear? What about snorkels? What about if the water keeps rising? You know what I mean?
We can sort that out too. Like, you know, we live near Loch Ness, and I'm sure there's people who do that. You know?
Do you a deal?
Do my deal, do my deal. It may not be the top of the range, you know, just straight off the shelf sort of stuff, but we'll sort it out.
Swimming in steel cap boots would be a bit brighter.
Swimming in St. Mark's Square, which is completely flooded.
I know, and it was so nice when I was there.
Yeah.
Although it was full of pigeons. Hope all them pigeons drowned. They were really annoying.
Those goddamn rats of the air.
So annoying.
You know, but as you say, get the wetsuits out, and it reminds me of that everybody's gone surfing, Italian 19. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, the floods are mad. And then you think of the floods, obviously, in England as well.
There is.
Part of me thinks that that's just the tears of David Cameron because he called the referendum. You know what I mean?
Running downhill.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, this just fucks shit up. Like,
It's a lot of it's similar to Venice. It's like, you know, all these towns that are in valleys, and Venice is obviously not in a valley. It's in the middle of like a lagoon or the ocean or whatever. Not the best place to build these places.
No,
you know, maybe don't.
Maybe don't.
Maybe don't.
Maybe rethink that one. Do you know?
Rethink that one, yeah.
Do you know what you need to also rethink, Sean? Sean's, if anybody doesn't know Sean, listening, Sean's a big gardening man. Sean likes to go out and cut the grass. You know,
I live in a 7th floor apartment. There's no garden. I bought roses last week and they died within 2 hours.
You know, cut the grass and trim the hedges, keep the place looking nice. And
this is a metaphor for personal grooming, or
well, going by that haircut, John, we'll not get into that. No, the have you heard of Insect Armageddon?
I haven't heard of Insect Armageddon. Is this a new film?
No, it's not. Don't want to miss a thing.
Oh, Armageddon. I really wasn't making a connection there for a second.
So yeah, apparently that there's an Insect Armageddon happening. Apparently light pollution kills.
As in killing insects, or insects going to kill us?
No, we're killing the insects.
Okay. So was that a bad thing?
The German government are going to ban, if not already banned, leaf blowers.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because they're calling it calling it mass insect extinction, which is pretty ironic, seeing that the Germans are big practicers of mass extinction of races or breeds. You know what I mean? You're like,
and now we're back in court again.
But you know, and they say that apparently the leaf blowers are destroying their natural environment when the trees fall, or the trees fall from the trees. The leaves fall from the trees.
As in, so the insects have nowhere to live?
Insects know where to live. Because you know the way, like, you see the BBC and different other national broadcasters doing shows with gardeners, usually around this time, autumn, winter, where people have in their gardens like just mounds of trees and mounds of old twigs, and they're like little places where animals can live. So
yeah.
squirrels, grey squirrels.
What are they, the bad squirrels?
They're the bad ones. They kill the red ones.
The red ones.
Do you know what I mean? Have you ever seen, actually, as well, there's this thing, it's like a sap in a tree where the squirrels can get stuck together. No?
Like 2 squirrels?
Yeah. So I think there's like a sap in some tree that squirrels live in, and their tails are so fluffy they get stuck together, and they all get stuck together and they die.
But what if, do you ever see, you know a bit in Emperor's New Groove?
I haven't seen it in years, to be fair.
You know, so there's a bit where he gets, he's a llama,
Right.
and your llama and get stuck to each other's like backs, and then they have to
Oh,
like,
a wee bit like that, yeah.
yeah. Do you think it's like, maybe there's a buddy cop movie in that? Where like a grey squirrel and a red squirrel get stuck together, and then they realise they're not so different after all.
I thought you were going for like an Eddie Murphy Trading Places there.
Is that not Trading Places? No, wait. Which one's Trading Places?
Where like, is it not where like Eddie Murphy and some like Eddie Murphy's like really broken poor? And
Only
then
swaps with other Eddie Murphy?
Yeah. Really
Yeah,
racist
like
stuff.
that. Well, that too. You can
Yeah.
do. But then the squirrels are grey, so.
But when you think though, like, you know they do like culls and such things, like badgers and such things. This is the environment fighting back against the grey squirrel.
But what about, but it's killing the red squirrel too?
I haven't seen. Wait, oh God, ruin it. Way to go and ruin my one love of the environment after the climate change bullshit it's putting us through here.
Just because you don't like grey squirrels. Why do you not like grey squirrels? Just because kill the red squirrels?
Kill the red ones, like in red squirrels. I have an affinity as a ginger man to anything that produces red fur or hair.
Fair.
know what I mean?
I guess. That's a bit sectarian or racist though towards the grey squirrels.
It is.
Are grey squirrels and red squirrels a metaphor for the Troubles? There's my hot take.
And on that bombshell, back in court again.
And in that bombshell, what are we talking about? Insects?
But yeah, apparently, so it's light. Light apparently is fucking them up. So like light pollution and also leaf blowers.
Right. And you're not allowed leaf blowers anymore in Germany?
Nope.
Right. I don't think any of our audience are leaf blower users in Germany.
No.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Claude actually was on to me last week. But yeah, anything else wild or strange, Sean?
I'm trying to think. What else is going on? What about, have you seen this? Google have a new video game console service thing coming out?
Stadia.
Stadia.
Oh, Stadia. Stadia. I thought it was like somebody trying to explain like a Scania, hey.
Stadia. 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 And essentially, I don't know who it's for. I'm not entirely clear on who it's for.
Do they not have like a target market or something? No.
Well, so essentially you buy this thing and it's basically a Chromecast sort of thing. And you plug it in.
Chromecast is one of the greatest ever inventions ever.
I don't dispute that. But
Okay.
so you plug this thing in and then you pay them. I don't know what the subscription model is, but you pay them a subscription, say it's a tenner a month. And you go
3 pints a dinner.
I know. You live in Dublin, it's a pint. Half a pint.
It's even not half a fucking pint.
And yeah, so you pay the subscription, but then on top of that subscription, you pay to buy these games. So, you know, you're like, okay, I've got my new Stadia, I'm going to play Call of Duty, the new one. So you then have to buy it. But then you don't necessarily, you don't have the game. It's like streamed. There's like a Google machine somewhere that is running the game and then streams it to your TV. As a result, if you don't have like top tier internet, which we live in Northern Ireland, very few people have top tier internet.
Northern Ireland.
You know?
Do you know sorry to cut across you, they're trying to roll out like down south for across, just like down south, a massive
upgrade
so that everybody in rural areas can have Wi-Fi. It's been massively, or broadband, it's been massively criticised. We're not going to get into that. Also, very quick digression, we're going to be chatting later on about K-pop and South Korea and such things. In the world, fastest Wi-Fi and broadband. Right
K-pop?
today, yeah.
Right?
Not
Well,
K-pop.
not K-pop. Korea.
So, yeah, South Korea, whatever.
But yeah, so this streams to your TV, and I just don't know who it's for, because you have to pay the subscription, you have to buy the game, and even then it might not work that well if your Wi-Fi isn't ideal.
What's the point then in the physical game?
You don't have the physical game. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, so you pay for like an online?
You have like a
game?
tiny Chromecast, and you plug that in, and then a Google machine somewhere in like California is physically running Call of Duty, and then streaming that across the internet to your TV.
Right.
So you don't. It's for people who don't want to buy a console. Basically, they don't want to have to spend £200-300.
I can see the niche market they're going for.
Very niche.
You
know, you need not only people who people. So you need people who
They're
like.
constantly hooked as well.
Yeah, but you need people who like games, but don't like games enough to buy a console. That play games, but don't play enough games to have to buy enough to justify buying the real ones or buying a console, and also have decent internet, good enough internet to pull that off. Like I live pretty much very central Belfast,
You do?
and my internet's not good enough.
Do that sort of thing?
Yeah, because PlayStation have a similar product that you get through the PlayStation to play PS2 games and to stream it, and it's just a disaster. It's like
Glitching all over the place.
Well, no, it's like just so slow. You know, like when you're playing a game online, it like lags.
Oh,
because
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
it's coming
yeah.
over the internet, so you press X.
It's like in the videos where they start to move.
Yeah, or you move the stick, and then he's like, like 2 minutes later.
Oh, okay, right.
So yeah, it's just really, it came out there I think this week, and the other week, and I was just looking at it, and I was like, I don't actually know who this is for. Maybe if you're like in the military or something, you know, where you're traveling all the time.
But then you have to have good 3, 4,
internet.
5G. Like,
Yeah, if you're in a cave in Afghanistan, you're not gonna get.
No, it's not going to be the one. Like.
You know, so yeah, I just thought it was strange. Maybe but even if there wasn't the subscription thing, it would be fine. Or if it was, you pay the subscription.
One-off payments, right?
Yeah, or if you paid £20 a month and that got you access to all these games, rather than here's £10 a month and you have to buy full price. At that stage, why would I not just? Or even some people will be streaming to their PC, so why not just buy the game on your PC? It's just all very strange. But then maybe it's one of those things where we're both just too stupid to understand the inner workings. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, folks, we look into that one for you. We'll get our top investigators on that one, and we'll get stuck into that. We've got some brilliant things in the show though today.
What are we talking about today, Jack Donnelly?
Other than our usual ramblings, there, folks, we're going to be chatting to. We're going to be talking about K-pop. We're going to be talking about the massive sensation
phenomenon.
Phenomenon. Worldwide. We're going to be doing a character study of the Joker, which we discussed a little bit last week about the new Joaquin Phoenix film. So we're going to do like a character study on sort of like he's one of the biggest characters in sort of comic book history, I suppose, pop culture history. So we're going to be chatting with him, and we've got a very special guest. Sean, who do we have?
We're going to be chatting with Anthony McKee from the Irish Video Game Orchestra, who's kindly volunteered some of his time today to sit down and chat with us about the Irish Video Game Orchestra and all things that. I'm sure he'll be able to tell you much better. They play music from video games, films, TV shows as an orchestral arrangement, and maybe there's a bit more extras in there. So yeah, we'll be chatting to him about how that got going, what they do, what they've done, what they're planning to do, etc.
So folks, that's all coming up after these lovely messages, Sean.
I think we've got a great lineup today, Jack. I think without a doubt we can certainly say for once you ain't heard nothing yet.
Joker as a character was created by Bill Finger, Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson and debuted in Batman #1 in 1940. Similar to Batman, there's been dispute over who created him. Bob Kane says he did all the work, Jerry Robinson says he contributed to the character's design and personality. The plan originally, actually, Jack, was to kill the character off at the end of the first issue.
Right.
Because the creative team of the three guys mentioned thought if Batman keeps fighting the same villains over and over again, it'll make him look incompetent.
Okay. Which is true enough. There's an argument to be had there.
Yeah, which I think is interesting then, because that's probably where the whole origin of Batman doesn't kill. And they're all, that's why they're all still there.
Oh, okay.
There are 10 guys, Riddler and all those guys.
Yeah.
But the editorial team at DC Comics stepped in and were like, oh no, this is something good. And they've made them add one last panel to the end. To reveal, I think he fell off a dam or something, and revealed that he had survived. So that was a quick save, for where we are now.
Yeah.
80, no, not 80. No, nearly 80 years later. 1940. I suppose we don't really need to explain who the Joker is.
No.
But for anyone out there who doesn't know, he's a violent clown, sort of jester type figure. He's kind of the antithesis to Batman. Chaos, order, madness, discipline, etc. Typically possessing no superhuman abilities, but kind of elaborate schemes, traps, comedic sort of weaponry, acid spray and flyers, razor-tipped cards and stuff like that. He's one of the most iconic characters in films of pop culture. Most Batman adaptations include the Joker in some form, including the 1960s Adam West show, the 1989 Tim Burton film, the 90s animated series, the other animated series, Batman Beyond, Justice League. Video games, the Arkham series, which I think they're talking about a new one recently, the Christopher Nolan films, the Suicide Squad film, the list's endless, and of course now we have the adaptation of the Joaquin Phoenix film we discussed, and Joaquin is following on a long list of people who have taken on the roles. He's Romero, Jack Nicholson, Mark Hamill, Heath Ledger, Jared Leto, but the less said about that the better.
We'll have a wee quick discussion about that. Why?
What?
Why you not like Jared Leto?
He's too. It's funny because Jared Leto clearly tried to be so weird and so different, but I think he's too normal. He's too sane. Do you not think?
I haven't seen Suicide Squad.
He's just there's a bit where he's in a bar and he's having he's like a mob boss and he's got his knuckle dusters and all, and he's got a suit on and he's trying to intimidate some guy. You're just like, that's not really what we're going for.
Okay.
I think he just tried too hard.
Right.
Suicide Squad in general just tried too hard. Well, Suicide Squad tried too hard. It was a bit of crap in general.
Right.
But yeah, I just don't think he was great.
There's a new what do you call your blade that played Harvey or Harlequin? There's a new Harlequin movie coming out, isn't
Birds of Prey film, which looks more decent and more in line with the better parts of Suicide Squad.
Right.
They're pretty much rebooting Suicide Squad with a whole new cast.
Oh, seriously?
The Suicide Squad, the name for any reboot, just put the in front of it. What if the reboot of Terminator? Would it be the Terminator? Well, they did reboot Terminator.
Yeah, I was going to say it's it's rebooting constantly at the moment, for God's sake.
Can I just point out, as Jack will verify, I have extensive notes here about the history of the Joker. Only as I went to print them did I realise that I hadn't even discussed Jared Leto, and I didn't care.
You were like, oh, happy days.
It was like there's a reason I forgot.
But yeah, so the character was inspired by a 1928 film called The Man Who Laughs, which features a character played by an actor whose name I won't try to pronounce, whose face is disfigured. He's this sort of stretched permanent grin.
Yeah, it's really freaky, like, isn't it? It's cool. It's in black and white, like.
Yeah, we get a photo of that up on Facebook too. It's a creepy picture. And this was kind of the inspiration for the Joker's look, you know, the big grin and all. And the idea that again, this is where it comes in about the dispute over creation. Robinson claims that the idea was to create an arch nemesis akin to Moriarty for Batman. So it would be his equal but very different.
Yeah.
Which I think is definitely what the character has become.
Without a doubt.
But he also wanted to create a flawed, sort of confusing character and really emphasise the insanity, but that didn't really come out in the initial ones. And they also went for this clown thing. And so then we have the debut, as I say, in 1940. And Joker's essentially a serial killer who uses his gas, his Joker venom, to poison victims, leaving them dead and with the grin on their face.
Yeah, which I think is quality.
I think it's a great gimmick.
Very good gimmick. Very, very good gimmick.
And as mentioned, the plan was to kill him off because they thought recurrent films made Batman common, but the editor stepped in and made them keep him alive. Joker would go on to appear in 9 of the first 12 issues of Batman, and the character really, I suppose we'll start talking about adaptations soon enough here, but the character began as more evil and sinister for a time anyway, but quickly by around issue 13, at this stage, this is around, say 41, 42, DC were starting to shift their marketing more towards kids, and as such, they kind of, away from adults and towards kids, and tried to, the characters more childish. While Joker was still a bit sinister, he more focused on the comedic aspects now. So then, essentially from 41, 42, essentially for the guts of 30 years, the Joker becomes a prankster rather than like a true threat. For example, I think during this period, there's a point where the plot of a comic was Joker kidnaps Robin, right? Batman pays the ransom for Robin, and Batman wins the day because Joker can't cash the check because he hasn't made the check out. This is a flop. So while the character might have started a little sinister, he tried to kill the mayor and kill important people. That was only for a little while, and then he moves towards the more standard, the 60s sort of.
that check thing's almost like, I got you now.
It's literally, you can imagine Adam West being like, haha. But little does he know, Robin, that I did not make the check out to Mr. Joker or something. But yeah, so these next 30 years, the Joker hangs about. He's one of the few characters that hung about and survived this shift towards more kids-based comics. As I said, character was more of a prankster, and the final nail in this sort of shift in the character toward a prankster who was still he was just, I'll steal your birthday cake, Batman, was in 1954, something called the Comics Code Authority was getting big into policing comic books.
Right.
So you weren't allowed to have gore, innuendo, excessive violence. This is just a weekend for you, Jack.
I was going to say it sounds like a fun weekend, that.
But none of this stuff's allowed. So essentially, Batman and the Joker were stripped of any menace or danger. So now we have, from 54 to pretty much the end of the 60s, we have the character that would inspire, in its truest form, the character that would inspire the Cesar Romero adaptation in 66 show. This Joker steals your cakes. Like, genuinely, that's the plot at one stage. Him and Lex Luthor steal a pile of cakes.
Oh my god, because people won't get their birthday cakes. Yeah. Jesus.
Batman gets transformed into Bat Baby during this period. That's the plot of a comic. Batman's gun. Joker tries to poison the fish, not kill them, turn them white. It's really
because they'll not be appeasingly edible or aesthetically pleasing to eat.
Really silly stuff. And so I suppose this brings us to this law of diminishing returns. We're getting less and less out of these comics, less and less out of these characters. They couldn't do as much as we wanted. Then in 1966, the TV show comes about, the Adam West show, and the comics receive a bit of a resurgence off the back of this, and the character's still in this sort of silly form. And we have our first real adaptation of the Joker that many people will know, the Cesar Romero one. Did you ever watch the show? I think you were a big fan of the show.
I remember watching it. I think it was on a Sunday. I remember watching it as a child. I liked the Joker. Who did I really like in it? Not a massive fan of the Riddler character in that. Quite like the Penguin in it. The Joker and his tash.
Never shades it, just painted over.
Just painted over it. Where was he from? It was Cuban. Cuban. And he wanted to keep that, that's it is a complete stereotype that, sexy Cuban, moustache, can dance and blah, 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 blah. And I would whisper sweet nothings into your ear. And you're like, dude, just fucking take off your bloody moustache. Do you know what I mean? You're doing a thing. And it is glaringly obvious.
We'll get some photos of that up too. But maybe he was doing Movember for...
It looks really ridiculous, but I do remember watching it as a child.
So the show would go on from 66 to I think around 68, 69. And then the show was cancelled, and the slight resurgence the comics had with these sillier characters just went into free fall. It was a conscious editorial decision that they needed to reinvent these characters and move away from these more childish stories. And there's a Batman 251 is where people say this sort of evolution began. I suppose we can talk about Joker in 3 distinct stages. We have this early stage where he's a little sinister but mostly prankster. We have the second stage where he gets a bit more sinister and grim, and we have the third phase, which is essentially from around 1988, 90 to today. But this is the start of the second phase. Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neill took over writing the Batman books, and they introduced a lot of characters we know today. The long face, the big like quiffed green hair.
Oh yeah.
The long purple suit and stuff like that. Thin frame. A lot of the aspects we like associate with.
Is there? I wonder what their choice was behind the purple suit. The purple's been a mask mean jealousy. Joker can be like almost like in love with Batman or slightly like jealous of him almost in his. I wonder, was that it?
That's an aspect that more and more writers are on recently in modern comics.
Yeah.
So the purple might have been something they were trying to like lean toward without outright going for.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But they kind of reinvent the character and put him back to basics, and also revitalized Batman. In fact, even during this period, the Joker got his own comic, which you're like, oh, it's a really interesting dark book where he kills people and stuff. Yes and no. The issue was the Comic Code Authority. Was written in their bylaws that any villain in any book had to be punished for their actions.
Right.
So anytime you have a book,
chart and stick like.
Yeah, so you have a book where the Joker's doing bad things, and you're like, oh yeah, this is exciting, it's interesting, but then he never gets away with any of it. So it's not a very exciting read. So unsurprisingly, it was cancelled after 12 issues.
I get it. Okay.
I think it became a kind of rare book actually. It's during this period that we kind of get this idea of Joker is Batman's opposite, like his Moriarty, as we say. This is really where I think the first time the character becomes what he was originally intended to be, based on what Jerry Robinson says. After 251, this story called Joker's 5-Way Revenge, the character just kind of trains darker and darker for the next few years, become more sinister, until eventually around into the 80s, we have pretty much 3 distinct events. They kind of push him over the edge into this third phase, and we have the start of a character known as today. We have the release of a comic called Dark Knight Returns. Well, actually, I suppose before we move into the third phase, what adaptation would be relevant to the second phase? Jack Nicholson? Have you seen that film?
So, Jack Nicholson, I do.
1989, Tim Burton.
I thoroughly enjoy that film. I really do. I think Jack Nicholson in that film is brilliant for the simple fact that I do think that he gets the bridge between the comedic and the more sinister. The more sinister in that he, the lady in it that Batman's trying to save, the fact that he's very creepy towards her, the fact that he's trying to gas the whole of Gotham in that film. I think that he uses comedic jokes like the gun, the bang, the flag out of it, very good. Water comes out of his flower instead, and also the hand buzzer as well. I like Jack Nicholson in that as well because they've also changed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the first time the Joker killed the Waynes?
Yeah, so that was. I think it might have been changed in the comics around that stage, but that was the first time it was like on TV.
Yeah,
which I disagree with that change. I like, without spoiling anything, I like the way the Joaquin Phoenix film does it, in that it connects it to the character without making it outright to him.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for the nature of Batman that it has to be a random crime.
Yeah. Because Batman then kind of a vendetta and revenge and such things. Funny enough, actually, I seen of other people who they were thinking of casting in this role, right? And I think they would have been brilliant. Now, I really enjoy Jack Nicholson, to be fair. I think he's a brilliant actor. Love him in The Shining, such things. I also love him as the Joker. Because like I said, I think he does his laugh, his cackle and his laugh is very, very good. Very, very good. Tim Curry obviously was a sexual transvestite.
Whoa, he's outing him here.
Rocky Horror, of course, yeah. For anybody that didn't know, because there will be people who didn't know what I was talking about there.
And he was another famous film clown before anyone called Skarsgård became said clown.
He was it, of course, yeah. He also was in what was Tim Curry was in one of the Robin Hoods as well, as like the bishop type unit.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was also Long John Silver in Muppet Treasure Island, which was a brilliant film.
Would you have liked him as the Joker?
I think Tim Curry would have made a fantastic Joker. He would have been incredibly creepy. He's a massive smile, and he used to always go.
I think it would have been more subtle than Nicholson.
Oh, very much more subtle, but it would have been that. It would have been sleeker almost. Nicholson was very like, "Aha, I'm here and I'm gonna fuck you up," whereas Tim Curry was like, "Nah," sort of thing. David Bowie.
Right.
I think that what it would have really added to the Bowie Joker is that Bowie was an incredibly skinny man, right? And there's almost that thing about the Joker that he's almost this like creeping massive figure coming in the dark. I know nobody can see what I'm doing in front of Sean here, but it's always like, you know, your big hands, big overextended limbs. Although I don't know how Bowie would have worked, because like Bowie, like we see him in Labyrinth, he's still not really the villain in Labyrinth, but he's a bit weird. I just don't know how Bowie would have worked in that.
I've been curious. I've been more curious to see that than the Tim Curry one. Not that I wouldn't like Tim Curry, just I think that would have been more unexpected.
Okay. Yeah. Willem Dafoe.
He would have been very good.
Yeah.
I think that's self-explanatory. Willem Dafoe's just a creepy guy.
He is, and I think that he obviously is in Batman, or not Batman, Spider-Man, he's the Green Goblin. I think that because of if you look at his face, if goes and just Google search his face, he's a brilliant already Joker face. Fantastic in my opinion, actually. Very, very pointy. And he's that creepy laugh as well. Was always good. And then the most surprising of all, Robin Williams. Mrs. Doubtfire as the Joker.
I would have to say it's the Cesar Romero. Sort of like, aha.
Yeah, it would be strange. Like Robin Williams would be very, very strange.
At the same time, I think, is it a film? It's definitely an episode of Law and Order. It might be a film 1 hour photo as well.
Right.
Robin Williams can do very creepy sort of roles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has very, obviously he doesn't typically do them, but he has been known to.
Okay.
He might play it more. He might have. We'll never know, but he might have played it more. You know, grounded. You never know.
Okay.
But I suppose that is the adaptation that's really most associated with this sort of period of the Joker, and you can really see because he still is comedic in a way, but he's more sinister.
Oh, without a doubt, very much so. And takes serious pleasure towards the end. The movie's been out ages. This isn't a spoiler. Batman doesn't hang him, right? But he's tied around his ankles, and he's literally like just hanging there, laughing and choking away himself. And that there's a sinisterness in that as well, you know, without a doubt.
And I suppose you can also note there, while that adaptation is most closely tied to this period of the character is so iconic that it is like its DNA is in all of the future adaptations. It's in Heath Ledger's to some extent, it's in Joaquin Phoenix's to some extent, it's in all the animated. It's pretty much the basis for the modern animated adaptations and video game adaptations. This is like the new foundations of the character essentially. But as I say, there are about 3 key like stories, events that characterize the end of this phase, beginning of our final phase of the Joker. The Dark Knight Returns, which is an alternate reality story set in the far future, where an aged Batman comes out of retirement to
There's a comic now.
to save the day in a dystopian future where Superman's controlled by the government and all the other heroes are dead. And in this reality, the Joker is kind of like a twisted reality star.
Right.
So I think he's been in a coma for a while, but as soon as he hears that the Batman's back, he wakes up again, drawn on that whole they need each other, yin yang sort of gimmick.
Okay, yeah.
Death in the Family, which is where Joker kills the second Robin.
Right.
To death with a crowbar.
As you do.
And how does the Joker get away with this crime, Jack? How does the Clown Prince of Crime get away with this?
Away with killing Robin? I don't know, fly?
If you said diplomatic immunity because he becomes the Iranian ambassador to the United States, you would have been correct.
What?
Yeah, he becomes obviously
what the fuck?
the US were having like genuine political like issues with Iran at the time, so
in real life, like
So the plot was that when they tried to get Joker for this, they couldn't because he had become the Iranian ambassador to the United States. Like he has.
Does he keep the face?
He keeps the face, but he has like like I don't know what they're called.
What the garb is, yeah.
You know, and it's interesting.
Makeup and all.
Obviously, that's just interesting. We're more leaning on the fact that he brutally murders essentially a teenager.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It's very visceral. And then the one, I think this is the one I think you've read, Alan Moore's 1988.
Not full way through. I have to admit.
The Killing Joke, and this is essentially the culmination of this shift into the final phase. This pitches Joker as an origin story similar to the one in the new film. He's a grounded, dark character who suffers essentially. He's a struggling comedian who suffers one very, very bad day, and this just tips him over the edge into complete insanity. Into the abyss. And throughout the book, once we learn about his origin alongside the plot of the book, and he paralyzes Batgirl, he tortures Commissioner Gordon, and just takes on a more sinister, violent, maniacal persona. This wasn't intended. This book's so influential, it wasn't meant to be canon at the time. Right. Because depending on how you interpret the ending, spoilers for like a nearly 30-year-old comic, Batman may or may not kill the Joker. Right. But it was so influential that it just became canon to the overall series. Right. With Batgirl being paralysed and just the events of this book being referenced in other comics. I suppose then you can then see the first volley in the start of this third phase being the comic relates the next year by a man called Grant Morrison. It's called Arkham Asylum, Serious House and Serious Earth, and while it does deal with pretty much Batman's whole array of rogues and villains, the Joker stuff is it's nearly like
you see these tapes of like serial killer murders, it's very visceral and haunting, and the art style really adds to it. I would recommend seeking that book out. We might try and put some photos up of that comic, because the art style is fantastic and it really adds to the whole vibe of the book. But yeah, as I say, this version of the character, the second phase, 70s or 89, is like the foundation of the modern character. The Nicholson version being the most obvious, but it's the new status quo,
new norm, new status quo.
So then from this, the final phase, essentially from 1990 odd to the modern day, it's essentially this character as he was, with those new aspects and tweaks from those three stories, and he just now slides more into a dark, psychotic and violent character. For example, throughout the 2000s, I think in the 90s, there was a story called No Man's Land, where there's an earthquake in Gotham City, and he does some awful things to people. You know, it's like this lawless society for a while. He does some awful things there.
Right.
Some of my favourite books, Scott Snyder has a comic called Death of the Family, where Joker just goes completely as a psychotic break, cuts off his face, and essentially has this systematic plan to kill all of Batman's friends and family, not out of any malice, but because he loves him. He needs him, and he wants to prove that his family make him weak.
Okay.
Batman only needs him.
Only needs him keeping him going.
So while the character,
still a bit warped.
So that's what I'm saying. Well, the second phase maybe talked about the character sliding more into
to the DMs. Sorry. sorry.
Into more violence and more psychosis, more crazier. This kind of last up to today kind of focuses more on the character becoming more mentally deranged, more twisted in his own head,
which in the movies brings us to Heath Ledger.
Yeah. So this modern adaptation essentially is these modern stories. This third phase essentially is where we get the influences that lead to Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, lead to Joaquin Phoenix's, and to a lesser extent Jared Leto's.
So Heath Ledger, like we all know, like Heath Ledger read A Killing Joke. He said that he based this Joker on Stanley Kubrick's film A Clockwork Orange. It's like so much so with if anybody's ever seen Clockwork Orange, so much so with the utter violence that they get into and the definite toying with their victims. He obviously locked himself away for a month. Apparently his notebook is pretty fucking crazy. Yeah. And it's quite psychotic actually. Parts of it. Apparently he was perfecting the voice. That voice apparently was very distinct, and that growl that he does. He becomes very much. He sounded so uneasy there. He's so much removed from like what we were used to, and the growl seemed monster-esque and unhuman. Very much in that one. Like I said, he locked himself in the hotel room, created the character, and. Do you know what he apparently the thing that would make, or what he used in his head to help make the Joker tick, and the laughing at things like blind babies and AIDS. He thought the Joker would laugh at.
I suppose it would be like like when, obviously it's a very different example, but like when you're trying to train a dog and you're like, you like when he's done something bad, you like shout at him and anybody, child, whatever.
Yeah.
They associate I won't do that because
yes.
Thing. And then I suppose it's the same thing. It's like subconsciously it's probably some kind of awful things like that are funny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Probably like to try and subconsciously twist something in your head.
Yeah, I get it.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I think it's probably most people's favourites. To be fair, it's very, very good, very, very good indeed.
Which I think is interesting because you have this character that's actually 80 years old, and we're still looking at new ways to look at him. Like
apparently, the producer in the last scene, when the Joker addresses the crowd in the last scene when they're going over the bridge. Apparently the producer couldn't be in. Was it the producer or the director? I read this earlier. God damn, Jack couldn't be in the room when that was been. Or couldn't be on the setting. He just was so disturbed by the way he was getting on that he had to leave. Right. So he thinks pretty mad too. Like,
well, he won a posthumous Oscar obviously for that, and it was very well deserved. I suppose really that's kind of the interesting thing I think about the character, that because despite being nearly 80 years old, it really draws. There's so many different angles to take on it. Like the yin yang aspect, the romantic nearly aspect in the Joker's head. It's something that, while has existed essentially nearly from the start to some level, was never taken as much of an extent as it has been in recent years. And it's this way that the character essentially has remained consistent, but they've drawn so many different things out of it. Yeah. And I think, as we talked about at the start, the new film really relies on a lot of these more modern aspects, but still has that same DNA of the earlier characters, even the original in 1940, more so the 70 to 89 phase we talked about, especially the most recent one. And yeah, I think it's very interesting, and it's funny because we've nearly split this into three phases. Like we have three separate. It would sound like three separate characters. And this is something DC have actually taken to retcon essentially in their comics recently.
I'll not bore you with the details, Jack. But essentially, a comic recently revealed that there were 3 separate Jokers, and they had all existed and simultaneously, and this kind of it justifies why we have so many different interpretations of the character throughout time.
Okay.
You know, so just thought that was interesting. It ties into what we're talking about perfectly. But no, I just thought it was interesting to tie in with the most recent and probably most, maybe not, I wouldn't say definitive, but most grounded and real adaptation, and probably most of what the comics not wish they could be, but are striving to be without losing their, like, you know, what they can do as comics, and taking stuff to like ludicrous levels and stuff.
My part and thoughts on that is that we don't actually see the Joker. Well, of course we don't have a Batman in this one, but we don't actually see the Joker in the sense where he goes out with the intent of doing these things. It's almost a build up of what made the character, which makes this film very different, but good different in a way.
But yeah, so that was the history of the Joker.
It is indeed, folks. Okay, well,
Moments after some more messages.
and we are back in the room once again, folks. Yes, you just heard, I suppose, an in-depth, deep dive.
As in-depth as Jack would let me go.
Of whoa of the Joker there. Now we're going to talk to you about it's a massive thing. It is rocked the world. I would
Rocked
say,
my world.
yeah, Sean was there, I suppose. And it also, I mean, you've been living under a rock if you haven't seen this. Sean, what are we going to chat about?
We're going to talk about K-pop, which is Korean pop music pop music from Korea, South Korea, Korean pop, K-pop.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's been a big thing for quite a while, and only very, I suppose, recently really sort of seeped into like more Western culture, which is unsurprising, seeing that they're literally pushing it as trying to get as much Western as possible. In that sense, you know, just a very quick fact actually that I found before we go into K-pop, in South Korea, or in Korea in general, one of the biggest places in the world for plastic surgery.
Yeah.
So they get like eyelid lifts. It's a thing that they give them on their 16th birthday, apparently. They give them like double eyelid lifts. Do you want to know why it is?
To make their eyes less like hooded.
Yeah. To make them look more Western.
Right. Well, this
Mad,
is more again a serious culture debate. What I've noticed from looking into a lot of the K-pop stuff, a lot of the performers and the individuals in the groups that are most, you know, lauded for their looks, are probably have the least generically Korean looking. You know, they have. And one of them that is lauded for being very good looking is half American, half Korean. You know, so it's strange to have this kind of aspiration to look nearly less. But obviously it's not everybody, it's just certain aspects of culture. But yeah, and I suppose it ties into what we're going to talk about as to how K-pop is maybe taking on certain aspects of Western music in its rise to the phenomenon that it is. Ollie London, just when you say about plastic surgery, this guy you should look into. So as we'll discuss, there's group BTS that are like the biggest thing in the world at the moment, and there's a guy in there called Jimin, but there's a guy from Jimin. Does he big in a protein stuff? No, Jim. Jim,
oh, okay.
Jim, like Jim. Oh no, whoa. Jimin. He and there's a guy Ollie. His name's, I don't think it's his real name. His name's Ollie London, and he like loves Jimin and loves BTS.
Oh, what about John Berlin?
No, they're cousins. But he's got all these. He spent like hundreds of thousands in plastic surgery to look like Jimin. And I mean, he might look like Jimin if you squinted a bit and had a few pints and an eye patch on.
Who is Jimin? I'm lost.
Jimin's in BTS.
Okay. Sorry, there's a fella that has spent
an English guy.
Fuck's sake.
And he looks. We'll put up some of the articles online. That they've done. I think a lot of the big UK papers, the Mirror and the Sun and all them sort picked it up.
Yeah.
When he's like, this man paid 980,000, you know, like that one that paid look like Angelina Jolie. Yeah, sort of that sort of story.
Fucking car crash.
But he's now putting out his own music.
Oh Jesus!
It's absolutely shite. But in fact,
singing with an accent, no, no Korean.
Well, he tries to sing a wee bit in Korean, but apparently it's pretty bad Korean.
Right.
And it's just brutal. He put it like this. He put out a new song that I came across the other day on YouTube, and he doesn't actually really sing in it. It's just him talking. So maybe he's even catching on and he can't sing. Right. But that was the digression.
That was the digression.
He has had a serious amount of plastic surgery.
So yes, folks. So I want to very briefly, before we actually go into K-pop itself. Very, very quick of the origins. So in 1885,
Going all the way back.
Probably when Sean would have been more at home,
Yeah.
to be fair. With his radical right-wing views. Sorry about that. No, Sean is not a radical right-wing. But a missionary called Henry Absenzeller. So he began to teach children in Korea sort of English and US songs, replacing Korean lyrics with English ones. The songs were known as changa, which means song in Korean. And that's CH.
The songs were known as songs.
Changa. Yeah, changa.
Changa.
So CHAGGA.
Chaga.
Chaga. Sorry, chaga. Where did you get the N?
Well, I don't know. That's
So there's an N in there. Yeah.
okay.
But these were collected and banned under the Japanese who were ruling Korea until 1945. Mm-hmm. And he was a Methodist missionary, and he wanted to introduce Protestant Christianity. Oh, I was trying to spread like wildfire. I wanted to introduce it to Korea between sort of 1885.
Squirrels all over again.
Those goddamn squirrels. to bring Protestantism and Protestant Christianity between sort of 1885 and 1902. Now, they weren't allowed to preach in public, so it was done secret. So if you can remember, Sean, they used to be like, the mass stones or the missionary stones that you see dotted across Ireland.
There's one outside my school.
Oh, seriously enough?
Just down the road. Top of Cattle Lane. For anyone who knows where Cattle Lane is.
I had an auntie used to live in Cattle Lane.
Did they?
Yeah, we're in. Sorry,
We'll save this for off air.
Yeah. But it's also, you can imagine, like priests in England. So when Queen Elizabeth came to the throne in 1553, there were several Catholic plots against her, and obviously Catholic households who wanted to still practice their faith had priestholds to hide the priests. Whoa! So it's in a similar vein that he was trying to sort of teach these to young people and stuff. And there was also, so the first Danny Boy, which the lyrics came from, no Danny Boy.
Oh, no, Danny. No, I raised an eyebrow there, folks, and Jack was like, Danny Boy. I know Danny Boy. I'm just curious how Danny Boy fits into the history of K-pop.
So the original the original music wrote for Danny Boy goes to another song, and that was used almost as well as a teaching tool. It goes back that far.
Okay.
Yeah, really, 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 really random to know. Like I said, he brought the English lyrics in, and then we had sort of the origins of the Kim sisters. You heard of the Kim sisters?
I haven't.
1959, the Kim sisters were running about, who spent a career singing to US troops.
Right,
okay.
in Korea, presumably.
And they sang to US troops, and they eventually got a gig over in Las Vegas, as we see all massive stars do. So Britney, Shania Twain, and such things.
Lady Gaga. Garth Brooks.
So just had to get that in there. So yeah, they were playing in Vegas, and they ended up actually playing on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Okay.
Yeah, for like 20 minutes. He's seen them live, and so they were playing. So that was already starting to sort of filter in at that stage. Then 87, 88, we had the reformation of the government, obviously, in Korea. There was modernisation, lightening of censorship. Prior to the country's Sixth Republic, there was only 2 broadcasters in the country.
Okay.
And a lot of sort of what they still use now in K-pop is that radio was under tight regulation, so was TV. Rock music was under massive censorship for like debauchery and sex and stuff things, which we can see as well in current K-pop, or in the early stages of it anyway, where they weren't allowing sexually explicit chatting or really or to talk about that.
They even restrict kind of like their public persona. Like, they're not even allowed to talk about being in relationships.
Yeah, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or anything. So before this sort of liberalisation, the music was predominantly sort of slow ballads, or trot, T-R-O-T, was what sort of the traditional music was in their country then. So of course then in 1989, Lee So-man founded the SM Entertainment, which later became, I suppose, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, or the big 3 entertainment companies in South Korea.
Arguably, given recent news, clearly, maybe the source of one of the biggest K-pop group going at the minute. The three big companies became JYP Entertainment, SM Entertainment, and YG. Don't ask me what any of those stand for. Well, you know what you've just said what SM stands for. But JYP.
SM stands for a lot of things, Sean. Well, I like to go caravan on the weekends.
JYP actually stands for JY Park, which is the song, the string dance.
No.
The one, the string dance.
Oh yes, sorry, yes. With Conan guy in the video, yeah.
So he's JYP, he's JY Park.
Oh, okay, right.
That company's name. But yeah, so these 3 big companies, as Jack says, were founded in the 90s, and in terms of big Korean acts, they're all the big groups come out of these. EXO, NCT, and NCT is something we need to talk about, lads, right? NCT, right?
NCT sounds like a drug. It sounds like something really illicit you took in the 90s.
So yeah, sorry, all these big groups: EXO, NCT, JY Park, Blackpink, and Super M. But let's circle back to NCT. A lot of these groups have things called subunits, right?
Right.
So, for example, NCT is NCT 127, right? But then as a subset
Again, it sounds like a military drug that the US government were, what do you call it? Trails, those...
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails that they're dropping from the fucking sky.
But then as a subset of that NCT 127, we have WayV, which is like mostly Chinese people. An artist. And then we also have NCT Dream, which I think is younger artists. They have NCT U, which you don't know what that is. And then there's just NCT, which is all of them. I mean, literally, if you were to say everybody who is in an NCT group or in the larger NCT group, you're talking about nearly 40 people.
Right.
Serious, man. Like,
it's not like understudies running, no.
No.
They have their own independent things, but just within...
And then there's subunits to subunits. So there's like 2 of them back on something.
They're like the Sugar Babes.
I don't like the Sugar Babes. Oh, because they changed.
Sugar Babes have like 1 million people who sang on their,
There's always 3 of them.
Yeah, but there was always 3. They kept the number 3, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, but even of subunits where they do solo stuff and they do power off and do stuff, but yeah, that's a whole separate discussion. But yeah, as you say, South Korea got mainstream exposure in the 90s. These 3 big companies kind of were the leaders, as tied in at the time when censorship was being locked up, or what's the word, like
a liberalisation of...
Liberalisation, they were taking it off a bit. And what was big in the 90s in terms of Western music?
Oh, in terms of Western music? Oh, sorry, I was going to be like MD.
Or boy bands. Boy bands, 90s pop, Spice Girls, Boyzone, Rubber Band.
Spice Girls was a fellas? What? Holy, it brings Scary Spice in a completely different light. God, I really love Posh Spice. Oh my God. David, get out of there. It's not what it seems.
NSYNC, it's all the lads, The Rubber Bandits, a great song about Boyzone. Seek it out. It's very good. And this kind of then was seen as, was kind of latched onto for like the emergence of Korean pop at the time as what pop music was. And the kids just kind of ran with it, right? So,
you see, sorry to just jump in there.
Ahead.
There was a band called Hot, H.O.T. Don't ask me what Hot stands for.
I don't think any of these things stand for anything.
Oh, seriously?
I don't. What is NCT? I don't know. NCT does stand for something. I'm sorry for all the NCT fans out there in our huge listener base.
Troll the fuck out of you now, man.
No, that's another thing, right? K-pop fans are mad online.
Nuts.
Mad.
Nuts.
Don't. If they find this podcast, we will be murdered.
Yeah, me and Sean probably won't be here next week if they find this podcast.
No, because we'll have got something wrong or something. Like, it's mad. We'll talk about a group later called Super M and the madness, online warfare that's been going on around them.
In 1986, though, this band called Hot was the first group to sell 1 million. And just when you were saying about the origins of sort of boy bands in the 90s and stuff, such things, they brought together, or were almost seen as like the first one to bring together this singing, dancing, rapping sort of thing. And in 1989, actually performed in a benefit concert with MJ. Can you imagine he was licking his lips and rubbing his hands together? He was like,
we sure. And this is the other funny thing.
Wanna come see Neverland?
This is the other funny thing of how big K-pop is at the minute. So prior to that whole film coming out and putting the nail in the coffin of Michael Jackson's reputation, the Jason Derulo and Lei, who is in EXO, he's Chinese. He is Chinese. He's a Chinese man who's in EXO and also does solo stuff and is very pro Hong Kong police. But we'll not fall out.
Get into that.
We'll not fall out with him over that. And NCT, they did a song together that was like meant to be. It was the lead single that was then going to be part of this Michael Jackson tribute compilation.
Okay.
They did the lead single. The film came out. The compilation's never been mentioned again.
No, definitely not.
But the lead single is good. I mean, what's called. We'll put it on Facebook as well. But yeah, they were kind of. I think they talked about the Korean wave. That would have been one of the earlier generations. This Korean wave, where like K-dramas and K-pop start to come out. I think we're in like generation 3 now of the Korean wave. 4. Psy, EXO, this group called Shiny performed in Abbey Road, stuff like that.
Were you a fan of Psy and Gangnam Style? Fucking hated it. Fucking hated it. I'm not gonna lie.
Talk to me.
Hold on a minute here, right?
Oh,
just like go through my notes here.
There's notes. How much of them notes are about Gangnam Style being shit?
Oh boy! Right, so there's multiple videos of Psy doing Gangnam Style
this
online.
This is the only reason he agreed to K-pop.
Multiple videos of this fucker, right? One of the videos had over 1.2 billion views, right?
It's the most viewed video on YouTube for a long time.
Yeah, it's been name checked by Obama when Cameron was president or when prime minister. Like, I mean, it was a massive thing. By God, I hated it. I just did. It just was shite. Like,
It was alright. It's a bit of crack.
whoop 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 whoop.
Well, there's other words. They're just in Korean.
Gangnam Style.
You did a song Snoop Dogg that was funny for how like kind of just aggressively poor it was.
Yeah,
it was like so bad it was good sort of thing.
Snoop probably was like, the money coming in, ding 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 in his head. He's like, I'm gonna jump onto this and see what I can do.
But Psy's actually got another funny story. We'll talk later about military service and how it's still mandatory in Korea. Psy, when you do military service, you're not allowed to make money through other ways.
Right.
And he was still doing gigs for like 2 years. So you have to do military service. I think it's 2 years or is it? It's like 26 months or something. And it came out about a year and a half in his military service. He'd been doing these gigs. So he'd like do Monday to Friday in the military. Then during the weekend he'd fly to like, Japan, do some gigs and come back. And this found out and they were like, no, you're not allowed to do that. So they reset his military.
No, they didn't.
So
fuck.
So basically he was in the military for like 3.5, 4 years.
Serves him right for producing that shite called Gangnam Style.
So it was actually, Jack rang up his mates in the Korean military. We're like, see him did that Gangnam Style. Get him in there. Keep him. Don't want him out.
Hello, can I speak to John Wee, please? Me and John are good friends. You know, John is the leader of like the military in South Korea. Yes, I do know. And John, about this Gangnam Style fella.
Sort him out. But yeah, so we're currently in like generation 3 or 4, Chris Korean wave, and it kind of is where a lot of, as what you talked about, this kind of singers, rappers, this band sort of structure, boy band sort of structure, and pretty much that. Any trope you can think of that comes from 90s boy bands is still present today, Even you look at, even the groups will still have, there's the singer, there's the rapper, there's the cool one, there's the cute one, you know what I mean?
It seems just so bloody manufactured.
But this is the funny thing, which we'll talk about as well, because it is so manufactured, but then you have sort of other groups coming through that are less manufactured.
Right.
Like BTS, for example, I think have relatively large creative input in their songs. Well, some of them do. For example, some of them are just useless. One of them is only literally one of them's in the group because the guy who manages the group was on a bus and saw a guy and was like, he's good looking. I put him in a poster and hired him on the spot.
What?
Yeah. But then the rest of them, others are like really like professional dancers, singers, rappers. Stuff.
I'm not going to take away from their natural talent, which is...
But there was a guy hired just because somebody saw him on a bus and thought he was... Fuck me. His nickname's Worldwide Handsome because he's worldwide handsome.
Right.
What would your nickname be?
What's that?
What would your nickname be? Your K-pop nickname?
Wouldn't need to be worldwide. It would just be... No, actually it would be Galaxy Handsome.
Galaxy Handsome?
Yeah.
Universe Handsome.
With a little bit of a caramel centre.
But yeah, so that's really the origins of it. So pretty much what happened, we hit the 90s, liberalisation, they grabbed all the best bits of 90s boy band culture, and that's the foundations of K-pop, as it is today. The structure of how you get into K-pop is very, not strange, just different. It was to us to be very different.
To us it's very different, and like we it's funny just to I don't mean to overshadow, to slightly foreshadow that when we have seen in Western culture child stars completely, things fuck up. Do you know what I mean? Like
Lindsay Lohans,
the Lindsay Lohans of this world, the Macaulay Culkins and such things. From what we're going to talk about next, that's my only worry in this, because we've already seen cracks happening. But go ahead, start us off.
So essentially what happens is you'll have agents from, there's a lot of companies. We talk about those big three, but BTS, for example, isn't from any of those big three. It's from a company called Big Hit, which is a relatively small company. But then this was just like the big time with BTS. So, as with most things, you have a lot of companies, but you have a handful of really, really big ones. Like anything, you have a lot of computer companies, but like Apple and Google are the huge ones. And all these companies will send out scouts and hold auditions across Asia. And sometimes, and now given the recent explosion...
Like Asian X Factor?
Well, no, well, not on TV.
Not on TV, but almost
but
in that same, vein, I suppose.
And even given the recent worldwide explosion of K-pop, they do it now. I think there was European and American auditions in Europe and America for the first time. London, I think the European ones are. And
do you still have to be of Asian descent?
See, this is the other thing. Not all trainees are of Asian descent. There's a very good interview I watched on YouTube with an African American lady who's getting interviewed about her time as a trainee and what went into it and stuff like that. So I don't know. I can't think of any groups off the top of my head. Some of them clearly are not fully of Asian descent. Like I say, there's a guy that's half American. You can tell compared to the rest of the group. But yeah, so these scouts go out and find these essentially kids. The trainees start from as early as 8 or 10, and they go through these grueling days. Some of them are like 14-hour days where they just practice all day. They're singing, they're dancing, they're going to the gym. They have to keep below a certain weight. They have to keep within certain measurements, you know, and all this. Some of them are pressured to get plastic surgery. As we talked about at the start, it's a lot of that plastic surgery revolves around very Asian characteristics. You know, their nose, their eyes that they're pressured into, like, maybe, you know, take a wee bit off here, a wee bit off. Yeah. But yeah, some as young as 8 or 10 when they start these traineeships, and some of them debut, which is what's called. So you'll all be in, like, say.
Just to put this, what you're going to say next, I know what's coming on this.
Mad.
I'm so conflicted. Go ahead.
So you'll have, say, 100, and not all trainees will ever debut. A company will have, say, 100 trainees, maybe more, and they'll all be going through these practice and all this, and they won't be getting paid a huge amount. They get paid very nominally, and the company will cover a lot of their expenses, food and a board and all. They won't be living anywhere nice.
They're not living in luxury here, like.
No, and they do this practice, and eventually they'll say, right, you and you and you and you and you, you're going to be this new group. This is what the group's called. This is the gimmick. This is what we're going to do. And some of them will be as young as 15 when they debut. And debut is, you go out, they have a big
fanfare almost.
Yeah, a big song and dance. Come and see the new JYP group, you know, whatever it's called. And, you know, they're like, oh, here they are. And typically, for the big companies, these will have an inbuilt fan base before they even debut.
Yeah, they're already there, like.
And, like, for example, there was a guy, it's actually, we'll talk about it, I saw BTS in Wembley. June there. Jack, don't hold it against me. And the
would have been the best gig you seen in Wembley this year, Sean, was it?
No, Fleetwood Mac was very good. And something that is very nice, but speaks to something that's kind of weird about it. So, as I say, a lot of them debut when they're very young. One of them in BTS, Jungkook, debuted, I think, when he was 16. And so now I think he's like 22, 23, 21. So he's essentially finished growing up as part of this group. And they sing songs on their own. So they'll all have group songs, then all of them have 3 solo songs to do. And during his, they played the special video they had for it that was all these videos the rest of the group had took of him.
Right.
So they were essentially like looking after him and helping him and, you know, all this. But it's mad that has to happen because he's 15.
Yeah.
Imagine, and as you say, I imagine this is what you're going to talk about here now. To be pushed into that kind of limelight when you're that so young is mad. Is mad. And the pressure it puts on, and the pressure that's clearly put on given the regimes that you go through. Like, there's all these other rules. Like, you're not allowed phones. You're not allowed to, if you're like a girl or a boy, you're not allowed to like be romantically texting somebody. You're not allowed part-time jobs. That takes away from practice. No relationships or dating. Even when you have to say, even when you've debuted and you're in the public eye, you're a celebrity now. Like, 2 of the biggest stars, one of the front men of that XO group I talked about, and Jenny, it was one of the front.
I'm still Jenny from the block. Sorry.
One of the front women from that Blackpink group. Or no, sorry, I don't know who Kai was. I've got that wrong. I've got that mixed up and backwards. Basically, Kai, one of the guys from EXO, was dating someone and had covered up this whole thing. But there's also rumours at the minute that one of the girls from Blackpink might be seeing your man from Tottenham, the Korean guy who plays for Tottenham.
Oh, okay.
But there's no photos of them on social media.
Yeah.
But there's, like, apparently people are like, oh, you know, he'll be like, she'll be at a Tottenham match and be like, why are you there? And she'll be like, oh, I just love football.
Yeah. Jesus.
Big Tottenham fan. And it's like,
my dad used to take me to all the games.
Yeah, but there's all these rumours, but they're not allowed to say it. It's absolute madness.
Right, here's my issue with it, Sean. It just seems so fucking manufactured, right?
The music or the system?
The whole thing, right? And it's don't get me wrong, right? All of Western music, or especially now at the moment, there's a lot of acts that are manufactured, and there's a lot of things that are put into the public sphere, you know, that they've been tested and marketed already, that they know that people are going to enjoy, right? A lot of the big stars like that today are probably not byproducts from that originally, but are in that stream at the moment. Okay.
Yes.
So I don't know whether my dislike comes from, it's not like a Western versus like a different culture or anything. It just seems it's fucking totalitarian the way they get on. Like no texting, like not letting them having phones. I can understand focus. Like I can understand, like, you know, footballers, for example, have to have, or massive athletes have to eat specific diets and such things. I understand that, right? Boxers can't have sex for like a period of time before they fight. Something to do with testosterone and different things. That's male boxers, right?
Yeah.
But it just seems and we're seeing cracks. We're seeing cracks with people completing suicide. We're seeing cracks with people pushing back. You were talking about about people in relationships there, okay?
Yeah.
The reason why I say it's not so far from Western culture, because S Club 7, for example, did we chat about this? I don't know why we chatted about this actually in the first episode, but we were talking about noises and such things. There was two members of S Club 7, some of you will remember S Club 7, who they were, that...
Don't stop moving to the club, mate.
I actually forgot there. I couldn't think of a song, but fair play. Some of them, or two of the members of that, were actually forced into a relationship for...
I don't know if it was on the show. You told me this before, yeah?
Yeah, so for marketing purposes. But I just feel that K-pop and the whole society, the big three and others, have created something that they know will work. Like this comeback shit as well.
Yeah.
Jesus, man. Do you know what I mean? Like?
So this is a whole other mad thing. So the groups... So, for example, name an artist, any artist, Western artist.
We're going to say, I don't know, Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga will release an album, promote the album, tour the album, release singles, do videos, then she might go away for, like, that might be the guts of a year and a half. Then she'll go away for, say, a year and a half. Here's a new album, new songs, new videos, new tour.
She's not away for 10 years. Let's just, so to warrant a fucking comeback, like.
So pretty much every time a K-pop group goes away and comes back, they call it a comeback. And what's involved in that?
What's that song? With a comeback. Right, go on it.
And like BTS released an album April time, and they're going to probably release another album very soon after the new year. Mm-hmm. That will be less than a year, and they'll call that a comeback. It'll be
They never went anywhere.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
and they'll build up to it, and they'll release. This is the other thing you talk about manufactured. This is the thing I find mental, right? Photo cards and exactly, and picture books and all this. And for example, right.
Is this whole fandom stuff?
Right. This is something I was going to talk about later. We'll bring it in now. So there's certainly a supergroup, a K-pop supergroup called Super M, which are all from different SM groups. You know, so EXO, SHINee, NCT.
I'm not part of any of them SM groups. Any chance?
I'll add you to some. This is why your Facebook got blocked, Jack. And all this supergroup, it was actually mad. They released a mini album, and it topped the American Billboard album charts. And this ties into what we were saying about manufactured and fandom and stuff. So much of that was allegedly this online warfare I talked about around K-pop fans in this group. They released, say there's 9 in the group. I think they released 9 different versions of the album.
Right.
So here's the Kai version, here's the Mark version, and it just had a photo of them on the front.
Yeah.
And had photo cards inside of Kai or Mark, just little Pokemon size cards.
Yeah.
With just photos of them.
With different poses, and,
yeah,
okay.
But not for swapping, just to be like, oh, look at Mark, he's so good looking.
Jeez.
So it is, but to know the fandom has built up around it and they play into it. It's a cycle nearly. They play into themselves. But as you say, this manufactured, this pressure, there's going to be pushback, and kind of saw something like that there in recent weeks or months with, I think her name was Sully. She was in a group called FX and left around 2015, citing the pressure and the rules and stuff. This was an SM group, and she told management she was struggling, but nothing was done, so she just left. Earlier this year, unfortunately, she took her own life due to online abuse she was receiving.
She received online abuse, right?
Yeah.
For not wearing a bra, and then she got her nipples out.
Yeah, the big one wasn't even the bra thing. I don't think she had her nipples out, but you can see them through. Yeah,
she was just promoting the you don't have to wear a bra sort of thing. Rachel was doing that in Friends in the 90s, folks.
And I suppose then this raises the question you're saying about the K-pop being very manufactured and highly pressurized, but is that the K-pop, or is that more the culture in Korea?
Yeah, so that's
bleeding into that industry.
Very, very much so. It seems because I before we came on to chat about this, I was very, very much like, I don't want to be insulting to like Korean culture or whatever, but it's mad. Like.
Oh yeah, like everywhere obviously has different values, but when it's coming to that extent, stuff like that's happening, that's not good.
Like their consumption of like a lot of reason why we like is the celebrity culture. Because of this mad things they get up to. So like artists that me and you both love, Sean, and things that are like really, really older artists, right? And then there is now a culture of like, okay, so we need to catch and get a photo of somebody doing a line or something, or really, really drunk falling out of a nightclub or whatever. But these people aren't hardly allowed to have sex. They're not allowed to like go and be their own people. Do you know what I mean? It seems so controlling. The queer identity whole thing was completely pushed to the side until very recently. It's, don't get me wrong, all these things in Western culture took time to come up to. Right?
Yeah,
That's fine. But they just seem to come up almost on a more of a natural progression. Or maybe that's what they want us to think. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's crazy. And something that then comes into that culture thing is, and I think, because I do think, and this is my hot take, to quote Blind Boy, I think it's not necessarily one of these things we're talking about. It's not necessarily K-pop being a highly pressurized, highly manufactured. It's not necessarily Korean culture. It's this perfect storm of bullshit, basically. That is, because you have that highly pressured, you have the Korean culture, which is that bit more strict and restrictive, but then you also have this other aspect of mandatory military service. So many, obviously a lot of them, there are female groups, as we say, Blackpink, FX. There's another one that I can't remember the name of at the minute, but I can see them in my head. They don't have to do mandatory military service, but all men in Korea, in South Korea, because the Korean War has never ended. They currently have an armistice, but the war never officially ended per se. So all men have to enlist by the time they turn 27, which is a whole other. This is just a fun fact. Your age in Korea starts from when you're born. You're 1. Yeah. So obviously, when you're born here, you're like 6 months, 9 months. 0. Then you're 1. When you're born, you're 1. So 365 days after you're born, you're 2. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
No, it is. There's a lot of weird old facts about South Korea.
You have to enlist by the time you're 27, and then you have to serve for 2 years. I think this encourages like a conveyor belt sort of approach, because like BTS have only been around. BTS, as an example, have only been around for 5-6 years. They've released over 10 albums. Like, it's just, and I think it's because down the line, like one of them, I think the first one of them that's going to have to enlist will have to enlist before the end of next year.
Yeah, it's coming very close.
So.
Because they tried to, they have exemptions for like classical artists and stuff.
Yeah, so there's exemptions for classical artists, or if it's some like sports contribution. For example,
like athletes, Olympic athletes.
Yeah, and the guy who plays for Tottenham,
he got an exemption,
but he got it at the last chance. I think the South Korean team were in like the equivalent of the Euros. Yeah. And if they didn't win, then he would have had to enlist. But then he did win, because remember there's all them videos of him crying on the pitch, because he wasn't going to have to go. Because especially, and it's the same for athletes. It's the same as, I think anyway, as like K-pop artists or musicians. Yeah. Those are your best years, essentially.
Very true.
Like footballer, like if he's 27, say, and he had to enlist, he's going to be 29, 30 time he comes out. Unless you're a keeper, your best. That's your best years.
Ronaldo or Messi, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Especially when you're out of practice for 2 years. The same thing could be said. I think people know that no matter what, there'll still be a following, I'm sure, because we've talked about the fandom is rabid and mad. Oh, Jesus. But when people come back, it's maybe just not that much interest, so we get as much out of them as possible. Okay. So I think it's like this perfect storm, like pushing through. They know they have this time limit, so there's always a new group debuting to take over. As we said, BTS are about to go. And the small company that runs BTS, Big Hit, have introduced a new band. Was that meant to like take over for the new ones? Okay.
And are they so they obviously have they have to do their military service, right? How does that work in with what has been dubbed their slave contracts?
In what? In they're allowed out? Well, the military.
So the military is paramount, I imagine. So if they're in one of these sort of slave contracts, as they've been dubbed, of where your company has complete control over you, they let you out for that. So what happens then to 3 by the wayside if you've said 2 years left in your contract, for example, like, and you come back and do a song and it's not really like picking up, you just fuck to the side, like?
I'd imagine they just scrap you. Jesus Christ. But then this is a lot of them. See, and then there's always a way around it. So. Obviously, at the minute, South Korea and China, I don't think aren't getting on that well. But prior to that, there was a lot of crossover groups. For example, EXO had several Chinese members, including that guy Lei. So it always worked that when the Korean ones had to go out in military service, maybe that's why the groups are so big as well. Some of them go in military service. Well, that's all right. Well, it's like 34 more of them.
Yeah, we're dead on.
Or the Korean ones go in military service, but we'll still have the Chinese ones.
Yeah, there was a band in 2006 called Big Bang.
Yes. And there's actually a massive controversy around them at the minute, which ties into what we're saying about restrictive. I'll look back to that after, carry on.
Okay, no, I was just going to say that they sold like over 140 million records, and in 2015 the Hollywood Reporter called them the biggest band in the world. Yeah. Do you know, they have found a massive success outside Korea and Japan. Their self-titled album was the first sort of non-Japanese girl group to be certified with 1 million sellers by the Record Industry Association of Japan, and they have massive popularity then obviously within Korea, being dubbed the nation's girl group. Do you know what I mean? So there is crossover with, into China and other places, and different into other cultures, but I don't know, it just for me it's madness, Sean. It is actual just madness. I think this whole they have a big thing about touring, right? So getting to see their fans and this whole fandom thing, and it's almost a wee bit, as we've talked to the fans, they're like rabid dogs. For want of a better phrase, baying for blood, foaming at the mouth. It's like Beatlemania on fucking steroids. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like the fans' interaction, it's a massive thing. Sean can tell us about the fan interaction that was at Wembley, which I find mad. But there was a presenter, Southern presenter, alluded to the whole K-pop stuff about the military and stuff, and she alluded to on her show that sounds like the band's going to break up. She spent that whole evening, so her show's on. I don't think she apologized. I think she said, like, I don't know whether she apologized, well, she did on her show the next day, but she spent that whole evening receiving death threats, receiving real hateful messages on social media, Instagram, for example, from an army of K-pop fans saying, "How dare you say they're breaking up? They're not breaking up. They're going to fuck off."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Who gives you the right to get on like that?
Well, this was the thing that, as I said, with Super M, and they released 9 versions of that album, and that tied in with the way the fandom approaches album releases. It kind of obviously drove them to the top of the charts because people were like, "Oh, I'm going to buy the Jack Donnelly version, but I'm also going to buy the Sean Hughes version, etc." And people were absolutely ripping each other apart online because, oh, well, they didn't really get number one. They're not as good as BTS because they cheated and did this. Fuck you. And really ripping each other apart and really getting each other. And it's like, it's just a band.
I relax, like.
But then on the other side, as I said to you, when I went to Wembley, and you've been, and for anyone who has been a gig in Wembley or a football match in Wembley, it's obviously that big long road down from the train station.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just mad. Everybody was so loving life and so loving each other. And there was these ones teaching each other the dance routines, and there was these ones running around giving out like fucking sweets. And because apparently it's a big thing in Korean culture at like events to like give each other presents. Giving out we like photo cards, and we like, oh, here's we fucking Haribo and all this.
Okay.
And everybody was all mates and all that.
Free Haribo.
You know, and it was they're all teaching each other the routines and doing. Oh, there was a bit over in the corner, and they were doing. And this isn't like officially organised. They were just doing this themselves, and it was just mad. So it's just how one side of the culture is so, oh yeah, we love each other, yeah, and then the other side is like, fuck you, my one's better. I will literally kill you. You know, it's mad, and it's the same thing then that has happened around the military service thing, because there was talk of BTS getting exemptions, as you say.
There was.
And everybody was like, then the government came out very recently, and I think maybe a few weeks ago, and said definitively, like, they will not be getting exemptions. Which, I don't know, what's your take on it? Because I think if you're going to, like, presumably the football one, or the sports one, is because, oh, you're, you know,
creating to our worldview or global impact in the world, sort of thing.
Which I would argue they are doing as well.
I definitely think that the big companies, I'm not gonna, like, again, I'm just thinking out loud here. They will definitely have had people from the government come in and have a chat with them. Oh. Right? So they're pushing an image out that they like. For example, we look at the way women are portrayed, these adorable, lovely little schoolgirls, or an empowered woman that needs a stronger man to rein her in, sort of thing. So they're putting out their traditional views of what they see society should be like.
Yeah.
So it's a wee bit mad and a wee bit strange that they allow classical artists, they allow Olympians and big sports stars, and they don't allow people who are bringing in, because we're bringing in like massive money to their country, massive money to these companies, the stars and other such things. It's just a little bit like, it's, you can't do one thing for one and not the other. Do you know what I mean? It's very half-assed. But then again, where will they draw the line? Do you know?
Where do you? Yeah. Especially when you have people who presumably are doing their service now, and thus they're missing out in their
career and anything else.
Because, you know, where do you stop? Especially then, do you start giving people that work in government jobs, you know, exemptions, because they're still, or like media, the new, you know, where do you stop? It's actually funny. There was a guy who's banned from Korea.
Right.
I think his name is Yoo Sung Jun, and he was a K-pop star who had claimed to American citizenship through his parents. Right. So in 2002, he used this as grounds to fuck off out of Korea and go to America to avoid military service.
Right.
And he's banned from Korea to this day, because he flunked out in his military service. There was another guy.
Would they throw him in jail if he entered the country?
I don't know. Or would they just force him to go? You know.
I would guess jail, to be honest, but we don't know.
Another guy got his teeth removed.
What?
So he wouldn't have to go, because you have to be like of certain level of, you know, health and stuff. So he got some of his teeth removed, so he wouldn't have to go. It's mad. It's like, it's so much. I think it ties into the whole culture pressure and being seen a certain way that permeates both the society and the industry, that just create issues all around. But yeah, I think the government pretty much said no to any sort of exemption, which is, it's strange. I think it's ironic that the K-pop, the Korean music side of things, is so like tries to keep separate from the political side. But then you look at, for example, the China stuff, and so many of their big artists, that Lay guy, for example, are like, as I say, are all like, oh, pro Hong Kong, yes, go Hong Kong.
Yeah, very, very much so.
You know, even I think there was controversy there, not music, but the lady that's playing Mulan in the new film, she got in a bit of ball there a while ago. I think she put out some statements, very anti Hong Kong statements, but it's just, I think it's interesting that despite Korea seemingly being, it's so much more involved with the
Yeah, it seeps in. It's hard not to seep in. Let's be very, very fair, because we see obviously massive artists, the likes of Taylor Swift, for example, was called upon to start talking up about people whose rights aren't being. She kept herself very, very close away. Do you know what I mean? A lot of artists don't want to get involved because
it's controversial.
Many reasons. Yeah.
I suppose we'll maybe head. Jesus Christ, look at the time. We'll head toward the end. We'll talk about the one thing we haven't seemed to talk about yet: the music itself. Jack, what you've heard a bit? You do like some of it, I think. You can admit it. Come on,
I'm not. Put it like this: if it came on my phone or came on a radio station that I was listening to, or came on I turned it off. Like
you turned off.
I probably. I mean,
you like that Dan Isis one?
Which one is it? What is it?
I'm not going to sing it.
No, but can you hum it at least?
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's dead on. It's just not me. It's just not what I'm into.
It's just not me, man.
It's not what I'm into, dude. No, I'm just not a fan of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it was playing in my backyard, and I wouldn't go and see. Do you know what I mean? I laughed actually. Sean's girlfriend sent me like a link to, because I live in Dublin.
Do you live in Dublin, Jack? Jack, do you live in Dublin? D4?
D2 actually. And she sent me a link to there was something on in Dublin. I don't know whether it was just K-pop fans getting together to listen to their tunes or a night or whatever. And I was just like if it was free, I don't even know if I'd go. Do you know what I mean? I just don't enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? I just really just don't enjoy it.
That's fair. I like certain parts of it. There's a wide range of the music that's involved. Some of it is very colourful bubblegum pop. Some of it is a bit more fast and I wouldn't say heavy. Heavy's maybe the wrong word. It's not exactly heavy, but some of it is good. I think it is interesting. It's worth listening to. It's not all what you think it is, put it like that. But I think the question is, given that so much of it draws from 90s boy bands and pop culture, how sustainable is it? Because everything, it's so big at the minute. Like BTS are a very recent phenomenon, biggest so far. Like they sold out 2 nights in Wembley. I don't think Fleetwood Mac sold out there 2 nights.
No.
They sold out all across the US, and it was all big
stadiums.
Yeah, like where they do WrestleManias, like 60, 50,000 seat stadiums.
Do you know what? Like, probably a reason why I don't particularly like the music, Sean, is because, not saying that it all sounds the same or whatever, but it has this real, like I said, mass produced element to it.
It does.
Like how many albums did you say?
I think they've done 6 albums and 6 EPs, which is 12.
There's no personality to that. Don't get me wrong. Rihanna, for example, 7 albums, 7 years. Okay, she's been in a hiatus. Maybe next year we'll get more stuff from her.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about a big pop person in like Western culture and world culture or whatever. But it just doesn't seem to be any real of themselves in it. Maybe I haven't given enough of a chance.
I would say, I don't know about so much of the others, but do you think some of the BTS stuff, a lot of it is very manufactured, you're not wrong, but there are certain groups that if you look for certain songs that have got more involved. As you're right in saying they probably definitely don't have complete control over it, like certain like singer-songwriters, but
like, do you know that me and you, like, so for example, folks, me and Sean are doing a 6-part documentary on a station called Belfast 89 in Belfast.
I think by the time this goes out, the first 2 episodes will be out.
First 2 episodes will be out.
The third episode.
Well, the first one's definitely going to be out. The Frank Sinatra.
First one's definitely going to be out.
But me and Sean discuss a lot about the artist or the band or whatever. And some of the things that me and you both enjoy, Sean, is chatting about what they meant within lyrics in their songs, right?
Yes.
You're not going to get this from, because, like, okay, well, BTS have been given a wee bit more license. But with a lot of them, you're not going to get that same, oh my God, was he talking about her? Oh, that was that hotel they done that in?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what song he's talking
about. Do you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So
but I get what you mean. Yeah, you have to. You do if you want that. If that's what you want for it, it is there, but you really have to look for it.
Yeah,
in that sort of way.
Shouldn't be that hard. Like.
No. But yeah, I suppose the question is how sustainable do you think this popularity is? I don't think it's massively sustainable. I think it's a fad, unless they adapt certain ways or K-pop maybe steers itself more toward. Especially, I think the fan culture doesn't help either. The really rabid, awful fan culture.
Well, did you see that? Like, do you remember they were holding auditions for this new band? Did you see the video they put out? It's just very like wee girls, and they were all playing with toys and stuff. It was weird. It was creepy. Like what would be the average age? Like, if there was an average spectrum of age of people who enjoy K-pop.
See, this is I would have thought teenage girls, right?
I know teenage. Yeah.
I'd imagine it is largely teenage girls, but if you then look, like, for example, and I'm sure you saw some as well, when you're going through Twitter to see what people are talking about in relation to that sort of stuff, you're just looking at hashtags and all. There's a wide age spectrum. It is largely, it's mostly women.
Yeah.
But there's a wide age spectrum of older women, and it's pretty crazy.
Right.
So, but that's what I mean. I think it's a trend or a fad, unless they like adapt and maybe take on, maybe, I don't want to say Western influence, because then it loses maybe the point of it and why it's different. But some more middle of the road sort of, more modern influences maybe, because at the end of the day, what they're doing is 90s boy band stuff, just kind of brought up to date a wee bit.
Giving us more of what we want.
It's all we want. Bring back NSYNC. But yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting. The culture is a very interesting discussion because you can see how it bleeds into the music and the fan culture and the fandom and all. Sustainability, I think, is a big question. I'd be curious if we come back to this topic, say a year or two down the line, how will it look in a very different light?
This is the court having sanctioned this to stop.
All those issues we brought up at the start, leaf blowers and all. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on K-pop? Will you be seeing any K-pop groups on their next big tour?
Other than that, no. I will definitely not.
I'll get you a ticket. You'll be alright.
Jesus, thanks, Sean. That's awful nice.
No, not
Not down my cross. No,
yeah,
down my cross. Oh, damn.
So that was the life and times of K-pop. It's Korean pop. It's the hot thing at the minute. I saw BTS in Wembley, in case I didn't mention. But now we've got a very special guest here for an interview. We've got Anthony McKee, the Irish Video Game Orchestra.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi.
The Irish Video Game Orchestra, they play video game music, film music, TV music, pop culture sort of music.
Anime music, soundtracks. We'll probably get into that.
And
sorry, I'm not trying to dictate your interview or anything. It's fine. So this isn't propaganda at all.
Yeah. I suppose, do you want to tell us how it started? What is the Irish Video Game Orchestra, I suppose, broadly to begin?
Yeah, sure. Well, just first, we're the IVGO, the Irish Video Game Orchestra. So we're basically just a community-led, community-run orchestra set in Belfast, but actually we have players from across Ireland. We actually have someone who travels up every other week from Dublin, and someone from Cork as well.
I'm all too familiar with that that train journey or that bus journey from Dublin.
So you know, so you know what it's like, and with a viola, So
imagine looking at a classical piano up and down that fucking thing.
But so we basically we're orchestra, and as you said, we try and play music from video games, but also we delve into film soundtracks, TV, anime soundtracks as well. And just basically, we've tried our sort of hand at everything at this stage, and we started off in 2015. We actually started off as a project, so it was actually our music director Robert Martin, who's over in Maryland at the minute. He was actually doing a master's over in Queens, and he had to set up as part of his degree. He had to set up a sort of an event or a music concert. So he came up with the idea of video game music. We were only meant to be a one-off. We were playing at one of the comic conventions at Queen's, QCon, and we wrap it up. And it was, as I said, it was meant to be one-off. We all just came together from different, some of us were big musicians, some of us hadn't picked up an instrument in a while. Played a few tunes. It got a really good reception, and I think the most important thing was we really enjoyed it as a group.
We'll come back to the production of the show and what gets involved, but what are some of your notable your highlights in terms of gigs or events, or where is this orchestra taking you that you've enjoyed?
Loads. So
we got time.
Yeah. Let me just get my diary here. No. Well, one of the we've done really great gigs this year. So, for example, we've got to. We've managed to get down to Cork. We're at one of the cons down there. We've been at Stendhal at the big music festival up in Limavady.
Oh yes.
And we actually this year we got nominated for an Amateo Award. So it's basically an award for voluntary arts in communities, and we basically represented the UK and Ireland. There was only a few finalists. We got to go all the way to Novi Sad in Serbia. That was amazing. I mean, to go from literally playing a few bars of Mario on the first gig that we ever did to getting out to Novi Sad with all these other organisations that we're just at the end of the day, we were just a very, very voluntary run. We're completely free. There's no membership for our members at all. We actually get our gigs to cover the accommodation and stuff like that.
Oh, that's good.
Just get there and be with other big contenders who get government funded and grants, and we're what are we doing here? We shouldn't be here. But that was amazing itself, and I think really shows how far we've came from 2015. But to be honest, every gig that we've done so far we've really enjoyed. Like I personally really enjoyed. My favorite one this year was we have a wee sort of smaller group in our orchestra, and we sometimes do, like, when we're asked, we play, you know, at maybe sort of smaller venues and things like that. We were invited down to the World Sci-Fi Convention.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
up down in Dublin, WorldCon, yeah. And
Is that in the convention centre?
yeah, literally in the ICC, yeah. And
you never called in to say hello, Anthony. And I
Were you right?
Say it on. We'll hear it on. It's all coming out now,
That's
folks.
fine. Sorry, I was just too busy, you know.
Jack's big fancy flap provided by his non-named corporation that he works for.
Advertisement there. No, yeah. So I was just round the corner for you, Jack. Yes, and we actually managed. We obviously played a wee small gig during the convention, but then we were also invited to play at the award ceremony of the Hugo Award. So for the actual sci-fi, like, it's essentially the
Nothing
Nova.
to do with Hugo Duncan.
No, nothing to do with Hugo. No, it's basically the Nobel, you know, Literature Prize for sci-fi lit.
Yes.
And like George R. R. Martin and everyone was in the audience, and we actually did a rendition of The Best Is Yet to Come, which is from Metal Gear Solid franchise, which is in Irish, and it was just so getting to sing in front of that big audience, and that was streamed around the world, and that's a really, you know. That was just an amazing,
Pretty massive.
That was probably the most massive thing, and I think really for us we were like, oh my god, like, especially as I said, coming from just a project that was only meant to happen once, and getting that opportunity to do that is great.
Can I ask? Because I know that there's a DJ down south. She works for RTE called Jenny Green, right? And I don't know if any of you heard of this, but what she does is she does things with RTE Concert Orchestra. So she mixes old dance tracks while they play the instrumentals on it, and they get somebody to sing. So when you're putting yours together, is it just purely just you playing the noise, if you understand?
Yeah. It's also, we literally, as I said, we it's a mixture of actually getting some repertoire that's already written, or we actually have people in our orchestra who try to arrange some of the music as well, so it's actually arranged specifically for knowing what sort of instruments and what our strengths or weaknesses are. Right. And completely all our music, it's not like we sort of put a wee bit of sound effect in here and things like that. We literally, instrument by instrument, it's all played live. So and I think that's what makes it amazing too. Like, you kind of hear it in a different light as well. Like, you know, the last Saturday we had our concert there down in Low Church, and you know, we're playing the music from the Gusty. It's from Mario, so it's Gusty Garden, and it's obviously, we completely just orchestrate it. We really bring it to life that way, and we also bring it to life, you know, in the sense that we're just bringing it to a different audience as well, like an audience that doesn't necessarily usually think of accessing classical music. On the first, you know, I think that's what I really enjoy about it too, is we're reaching a completely different audience in that way.
Yeah, you touched on a few things there that I want to come back to, but something that I think we've discussed before and that I think you think's very valuable is the access side of it. In that, like, for example, I know personally I'm not going to go see the Irish Symphonic Orchestra or whatever, play Beethoven or whatever, but as you,
very cultured man.
Well, you're watching a lot of movies, so maybe I don't know why not.
But I would go see the Irish Video Game Orchestra, as I have, play Mario Galaxy, the best Mario game. What would you say? Sunshine, you were saying?
No, I actually really like Super Mario RPG, but I don't think anyone's ever played that.
7 stars, huh?
Yes,
Never
it's actually really good. It's alright.
Super Nintendo game.
I
love
tangent.
I love that.
We've lost them, folks. We've now lost them. I'm trying to rein them back in here.
But like, I would go see an orchestra play that, as we discussed previously. I went to the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra in Paris. Do you think that access side of it is, in terms of people who wouldn't see an orchestra going to see an orchestra, is that important?
I think like for us it's incredibly important. I think it's one of the reasons, so going forward from our first concert we sort of worked on what, you know, we want to get out of our gigs, and I think that is one of the main areas we get in, is the sense of, you know, you hear and I've heard it loads of times as well, you know, classical music isn't relevant for young people anymore. You know, that's not the case. I think it's the case of, the problem is that the status quo of classical music doesn't really necessarily look in the right place. I think it's changing. I think a lot more people, for example, you have Classic FM they have video games music show now. They also have you also have, it was touched a wee bit as well on I've heard a wee bit covered on BBC Radio 3, and I think there's people really starting to engage more of that. You actually had the Ulster Orchestra recently did they had fantasy music as well, and they worked with us sort of trying to get the message out about that too. So coming back to your question, sorry, because obviously very valuable, but I think it's really important. I think there's no audience for classical music if we don't try and get more audiences in, and I think that's something that's really seen in our gigs. We usually just do like a bit of a straw poll, getting people to put their hands up who had ever been in a classical gig or one in Cork. I'd say about 90% of when we ask them, is this how you ever been at a classical music gig? Like, is this your first one? 90% of people put their hands up. They'd never been there, and I think it's a case as well of not just the music that we play, because obviously it's things that people recognize, but also we try and make it a much more friendlier atmosphere. Yeah. So I think when you go to like the concert hall, there's this, you have to be quiet, you can't clap between movements, you can't, almost it absolutely sucks the enjoyment out of it at times. And I think we're very anti that, in the sense that we get people take pictures, clap, applause, and something we are looking at in the future is actually one thing we've noticed is we find that the way that we have our environment, or that sort of more friendly environment at cons especially as well, that we're trying to look and make it some concerts in the future to be more friendly towards people who may have autism or Asperger's as well, because I think that's something that we find in our at cons, that you have people who have never been in that concert hall environment because it just isn't a friendly environment for them at all. And I think that's something we're definitely trying to work with, and I think when we do that, that's a benefit not just to us getting more people through the door, but a benefit for people hearing classical music who actually get to see it. I know we're not a full orchestra, but we have most of the instruments there, and people get the sense of what an orchestra is about.
Just to wrap up, am I right in saying you guys have open rehearsals? If anyone's come along?
Yes, we do. So if
where,
you can,
when,
so if you get in contact with us first, okay. So because our rehearsing space actually changes everything. The problem with being such a bigger outfit now is it's so hard to get rehearsing space sometimes. But we usually are either playing in the markets or up at near Queen's in one of the chaplaincies. And if you are interested, if you're listening, you are interested, have played, don't have to be a constant player, honestly. If you just have played and maybe put it down for a while, do get in touch with us just on social media, on Facebook. You can also email us too. It's ivgoorchestra@gmail.com, and just let us know what you play, what grade you're at, or how long you've been playing, and we will try and fit you in somewhere. We're always looking for new players, and don't just, even if we maybe don't have the if you don't feel comfortable yet, like, come and see one of our concerts. Come and see. As I said, we're a community orchestra, and we're here to serve the community in a way too. So we want you to come and see us and enjoy it and play along. If you really, that's most of our players have came through seeing a concert and being like, I really enjoyed this. Can I play? And I think they usually come up after the gig and go, oh, like, I would love to play at the orchestra. And we're like, well, then come along. Just literally, I think a lot of people think we're a professional outfit, or like, we do this full time.
It's
like
the hoodies.
I mean, the hoodies look very nice, but unfortunately, we're definitely not. We're not full time. Otherwise, I would, God, I'd love to play the cello and play Kingdom Hearts all the time. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But no, just come and join us and come and play with us. 100%, like, always welcome. And as I said, we're rehearsing. The space changes sometimes, but it's usually on a Wednesday evening.
And is there any particular instruments you're looking for, or just any sort of classical sort of?
No,
sort of
any instrument. I mean, we
have guitars.
We have a guitar. Yeah. We have singers. We have we'll meet people put a choir together soon. We have pianists. Just let us know what you'd play, and we'll definitely see if we can fit you somewhere. Whether it's that, or help us in some other way. Even get the our name out a bit more.
What about us? We can't play anything or have a note on our head.
Yeah, we can't do anything like that.
Well, you're supporting us this way, so I know you too well. So I don't know if I'd have you anywhere near my cello. I'm sorry.
Wait there, hold on. What?
Scratch this interview. It's fine.
delete. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or is there anything we've missed? Or?
No. I think I'm sorry. I talked out. No, I think it's grand. Thank you. Thanks for having me again. And as I said, just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and hopefully new gigs in 2020.
Yeah, that was Anthony McKee from the Irish Video Game Orchestra. It's the cellist.
It wasn't. Oh my god. Jeepers, creepers, gaze, that sort of took a little bit out of me. It did indeed. Do you know what to think at the end of a video game, or when you die it goes and it's over, game over. That's how I feel after that conversation. Anthony, thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you,
folks. We're gonna end it up here very, very soon. You'll hear me and Sean's parting thoughts after these lovely messages.
And that's it for another episode, folks. We covered a wide range of topics again this week. We heard about Jack's and mine new favourite genre of music, K-pop. We heard from the Irish Video Game Orchestra. Keep an eye on their social medias, Instagram, Facebooks, Twitters, to hear what they're up to in the new year. And we discussed the history, the life and times of the Joker, all his various incarnations and interpretations. Jack, think it's been a good show. What's been your takeaways? What are your thoughts?
Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the Joker's a brilliant character. One of my favourites. Do you know what I mean?
Base your life on him?
Well, do you know what I mean? John, the cops could be listening. The K-pop stuff, very, very interesting. It's strange collection of, I suppose, culture, you would call it. Strange because it's foreign and different to us. It's interesting and I like it, but I don't like it.
He says that. He only says that. Yeah, well, that's us for another week. Jack, what's lined up for next time?
Lined up for next time, yes. We're going to be doing our It's Santa! Sorry, that nearly killed me there trying to say that. Go on ahead.
I think that means a Christmas special is in order. Is that what you're saying?
It is a Christmas special, Sean, yes. We're going to be chatting, folks, about all your favourite films, all your favourite Christmas songs, because all I want for Christmas is my two front teeth.
An elephant, that's another one. What is it?
Fucking hate that Dandy Donkey one.
Oh, that's an even better one. I forgot
it so much. I hate it so much. But yeah, what about you, Sean? What'll
be on my end the next week?
Yeah, you're looking forward to chatting about it.
I'm looking forward to chatting about It's a Wonderful Life, my favourite Christmas film. Jack isn't as much of a fan.
Brilliant Christmas film.
And just all things Christmas, movies, TV shows, the Santa Claus, Christmas 24, which is an awful channel. But yeah, just all aspects of Christmas, good, bad and ugly. Maybe Good, Bad and Ugly's Christmas film. Good Die Hard counts, I think. But yeah.
Well, okay, folks, look, that is a wrap for today. The beautiful man sitting opposite me, he is Santa's little helper. It is Sean M. Hughes.
And opposite me, on the far side of the desk, is the leader of the BTS army. It's Jack Donnelly.
And of course, folks,
you ain't heard nothing yet.